Dr. Jim Henderson is the president of the University System of Louisiana. Hey, Dr. Jim, welcome back to KEEL.
Hey, good morning. Always a pleasure.
So it's the deal is done. They're all going home, headed back to their little ranches or ranch homes, whichever the case may be. As you look at this latest special legislative session and the deal they did to keep Louisiana the highest sales tax state in America, what do you think about all that?
Well, it's also Louisiana that has the earliest tax freedom day in America, so we can look at it from a number of perspectives. But it is a beautiful day for families of Louisiana. More than 50,000 of them, they were facing the prospects of writing a $30 million check. Now know that the TOPS promise has been fulfilled. I think that's a great victory for all of us.
You know, it's a difficult number to find. Matt and I sort of looked around last week, and you've really got to. It's almost like they're trying to hide the number, but I know you know how much funding for TOPS is in this new bill. How much money will we spend on TOPS in 2018 and beyond?
It's right at $30 million.
30
million. No, excuse me. That was what they restored. It's right at $300 million.
That's what we were thinking, $300 million.
Yes.
And Erin and I have gone back and forth about this for some time, and you can weigh in. I guess the question is, in your mind, is there a ceiling for how much money the state of Louisiana should spend on TOPS?
You know, I think there's a ceiling for how much any government should spend on anything. When you start narrowing it down to programs, I don't know that there's there's a better investment of our resources than developing talent. And so whether you think TOPS is unsustainable and it needs to be reworked, as they had a study group that worked for a year to look at recommendations, none of which were able to pass the legislature, or if you believe like me that TOPS should be sustained with some purposeful strategic enhancements, I think that's open for debate. Here's the important part, Robert. This is really important. If you change TOPS, change it prospectively, not for those that have already performed under the TOPS criteria and they've already achieved, because they've already earned their promise from the state, and that's what this was about.
If Dr. Jim has the magic button, what are those purposeful strategic enhancements?
Well, I think that one, you have permanence to the promise. In other words, you tell students that, listen, this is a contract with you. It's going to be backed by the full faith and credit of the state of Louisiana, that when you achieve at this level, then you're going to get this amount awarded to you to support your education. Now, you can do other things. You can say, can we make it more market sensitive? In other words, historically, TOPS was tied to tuition. So if you had higher tuition at the institution and you chose an institution, your TOPS award was higher. Why don't we make it a little bit more competitive? Why don't we make the award amount student-specific? And then the student chooses the institution they want, and there's no variance in the award. That was one of the proposals that came from Senator Dan Morris out of the Lake Charles area. That way you create a market force that forces institutions to add value to the student. I think that's one that's worth reexamining.
Doc, could we also put some limits in terms of if you go to college on TOPS and you don't perform or you flunk out, you owe us the money back?
Well, you could do that, except that you earn TOPS by past performance, and the penalty for failing to perform is you got to pay for your own college education, right? So there is already it's structured very beautifully in a way that you pay a penalty for not performing. And when you look at the graduation rate of TOPS students, because they've taken the most rigorous pathway through high school, they're better prepared for college and they succeed at higher rates. Part of that is financial, but the other part of that is they are academically prepared for college.
Robert made a good point with regard to that.
You want me to say it?
No, I want to say it because I have close personal friends whose kids have gone to school on TOPS scholarships.
Because it sounds like the most cynical thing. Let me tell.
And then they go out of state for jobs. We're spending all this money, and then we're losing these kids to other states after we've paid for their education.
Dr. Jim, here's what I said. Pardon me. Here's what I said, and to me it sounds like the most cynical thing of all time, but is it untrue? TOPS, educating the next generation of Texas workers.
We all know these anecdotes. We can all share stories, and conventional wisdom then tells us that that's true. But I just saw a report from the Wall Street Journal, and I haven't dug into the data, so I don't want to give it too much credit. But of all the states in the United States, Louisiana ranks 35th and the number of college graduates that graduate from our institutions and then leave. So we're in the top 15 of states that keep those college graduates that come. Why is that? Well, one, people love Louisiana. People tend to stay close to Louisiana. I know you can talk about stories of people leaving, but when you look at our landscape, when you look at our culture, when you look at mom's cooking, we keep a lot of kids home. And so that's a misnomer that's really not supported by the data.
Let's talk about higher education funding, because I know you were stressing out over this. A lot of colleges were stressing out. What does this budget compromise mean for higher ed?
Well, it means that we've got stable funding for the second year. So this is 2 years in a row. The first 2 years in the last decade, we've had stable operational funding, and we fulfilled the TOPS promise. Now, it's important to remember, when you look at total resources per student, we rank last in the southern region, 49th or 50th in the nation, depending on the measure. So we're still low when it comes to low resources. Now, I spin that a little bit. I make it euphemistic. I say that we've got the lowest unit cost in the nation, and I'm quite proud of that. But it is time now that we start talking about strategic reinvestments in talent development, because I just saw a graph that came out from the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce. 72% of STEM jobs in America today require a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. If we're going to be competitive in this advancing technology, this new labor market, the new future of work is now. If we're going to be competitive, we have got to figure out how to raise our educational attainment rate. That's going to take some investment going forward.